5, 4,
3, 2, 1.
That is rockstar, right? That is being a rockstar. But that's not being a speaker. I know I startled some of you. That's not who I usually am. But I need to get that energy out if I start. And actually, if you think that this is a rock concert, look closely. These are cotton harvesters at night. So don't let yourself get fooled by stuff. Okay, as I told you, I'm not a rock star. My name is Rowdy. I'm born and raised in Gouda, in the Netherlands here. That means I did not descend to this little blue planet and being that all-knowing creature to educate you. So that myth is gone also. I'm just a normal human being. And I'm a freelance web and app developer myself. And I work for a Dutch insurance company called Nationale-Nederlanden, for which I do a lot of Vue.js nowadays. Also the lead and sole developer of our pension app, which we created with NativeScript, and I'm a progress developer expert for that. You can find me on Twitter. Please do so. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you have any questions. And I love superhero movies. I've seen them all. My girlfriend joins me nowadays. Have you seen Avengers Endgame? A few, yes. Well, she tells me I look like Thor more and more every day. So that, yeah. Okay. Most people prefer death. Studies show that a significant number of people fear speaking in public more than death. But for me, I think death is far more permanent than that 45 minutes here. I'm not sure if you prefer death over this. But why should you do this? Why should you come on stage? Well, it's something about personal growth. You get out of your comfort zone. And speak about things you're really interested in or enthusiastic about. If you do a talk of something you're not really familiar with, you can learn new stuff for that. Also, you give back to the community. I've gone to conferences since 2011, seen a lot of talks, and learned a lot of that. And hopefully I can return the favor. You meet a lot of awesome people. Speakers, attendees, organizers. It's really good for your network too. And also a real bonus is you go to places that you never thought you would ever visit in your life. You know, I'm from Gouda in the Netherlands. Well, this is not that fantastic, right? It's the Netherlands, okay. I've been to Belgium also and Germany. A little further away, like the Ukraine. Never signed up for that to go there myself, but it was really nice to be there in Odessa, for instance. And even a step further, I went to Siberia to be at a Google event there. It was really cold, but really fun. But most people think like, why? Why? Mostly because of the imposter syndrome. If you go to Wikipedia, it says it's a physiological pattern in which an individual doubts his or her accomplishments and has a persistent fear of being exposed as a fraud. No, you're not a fraud if you talk something you have passion about. Because you can also give your unique perspective. There is no one There's no one explanation of something. And maybe you think, well, I don't know enough, I'm not an expert, but that's fine. If you know a little bit more than the attendees you're talking to, you can give them something to think about. Maybe it's about 10% you need to know more, but you don't have to be an expert to start doing this stuff. By the way, a funny thing on Wikipedia, if you look for Imposter Syndrome, it also says that it should not be confused with Capgras delusion, in which a person believes that a loved one has been replaced by an imposter. That's really a really different thing. Okay. You think by yourself, well, I want to do that. I want to be on stage. I want to be here at DPC next year. But you need a topic, right? You might think, well, I have nothing interesting to say. And say that's not true. You all have your personal experience. It could be in your job or in your life or a hobby or whatever. Or you could share your process. Like everybody is interested or curious how you work. So that could also be an outline for a talk of you. Talk about your failures or bottlenecks. We know a lot of success stories, but we want to hear failures and how you solved those failures and how you dealt with it. Or you can choose a topic you're not so good at or you want to learn. It gives you a vibe to learn new stuff and teach it to others. Or go for something that's popular, that's really hot right now. Or, oh, that's the wrong button, don't do that. Or about upcoming technologies. I remember in 2011, 2012, there were a lot of CSS talks about Flexbox. I think you could only use it in one browser in a particular way, but later on it became the mainstream. So be ahead of things that will be popular in time. You can do deep dives or just an introduction, a 101. And I like tweets like this, where, say, a software tester says, well, I submitted my first CFP to learn designers and developers. Maybe we can help each other. And that's a good thing about Dutch PHP conference, for instance. They not only have talks about PHP, but soft skills talks like this, or JavaScript, or I did a mobile talk last year, for instance. So it's always good to broaden your mind in this way. Okay. You have a vision of, I have an idea of what I want to talk about. Then we get in the process that's called call for papers. And there's essentially conference organizers looking for interesting talks that fit their conference, their schedule. And you have to keep in mind there are two big differences. In conference we have multi-track conferences like here at DPC or single-track conferences. A multi-track has the ability to have a variety of subjects, to have different topics here. There's also a little bit room for experiment. It's okay if it doesn't fit well or it doesn't go well. It's good. Let's try things out. It's also a great place for first timers because simply there's more space for that. You all came to my talk. I hope you didn't mistake the door or something, but you really wanted to hear about this talk and be interested. You're free to leave if you want to, no problem. But people choose to come to your talk and are interested in the subject. And a multi-track has call for papers like DPC has. You fill in some information. I will come back to that in a minute. As it's single tracks, it's usually one specific team. They don't want to take risks. They might go for more experienced talkers or maybe the big names to sell tickets. Well, if you're an attendee, you don't have a choice. Well, you have one choice. Don't go to the session. And usually there's no call for papers or it's very, very limited for 1 or 2 spots. Call for papers there are a lot of them, but where can you find them? I will tweet the link to these slides later on because this has a lot of resources here. Myself, I curate a Twitter list of conferences that have call for papers. So that's about 115 conferences. If I know new ones, I'll add them. But we also have a few websites which you can subscribe to get notifications if certain conferences look for a certain subject you're interested in speaking about, for instance, JavaScript or something. And the last one is a newsletter for developer advocates, but it's also good for us to subscribe if you're not a developer advocate, because it has value information also about speaking, but also a lot of CFPs are in there. Okay, what do you look for if you're going to enter call for papers? Compensation. And with compensation, I mean, will they provide you a conference ticket? Will they pay for your flights or train or whatever? Do they set you up in a nice hotel? Do they pay for transfers between the airport and the hotel or the venue? Do they organize a speaker dinner or give you a gift, or even pay you to speak? These are all things that you should think about it, because if a conference doesn't pay for your flights or hotel, for instance, and it's somewhere in Eastern Europe, it can cost you a lot of money. And if you're willing to pay for that, or your employer is willing to pay for that, that's fine. But if you're like me, a freelance developer, I'd rather have a conference paying for that. And I did a little research on, in this case, 60 speakers, what they think a conference should minimally provide for them. As you can see, a conference ticket is number one, with almost everybody saying that should be done. In my case, I would have thought it would be 60 people saying, yeah, a conference ticket should be included, because it's really weird if they invite you to come and talk, but you're only allowed in a back door at a specific time, do your talk, and then go away again or something. I don't know. And hotel and flights are number 2 and 3. The rest, it's okay. We can pay for our own transfers. It's not that expensive if you have to do that. Speaker dinner is low here, 19 people. I always like a speaker dinner, especially before the conference, so you can meet the other speakers and the organizers, because you get a little bond there for the rest of the 1 or 2 days. But if we look at what conferences provide, and I had 15 conferences with CFPs give me these answers. Luckily, the first 3 are the same, or almost the same even. So we're covered there. A fee is here 2 out of 13. If you do a multi-track conference, the chances you're getting paid for that are really, really slim. Or maybe if you're a keynote, you might ask Steven Henley, how much? No, don't do that. I don't know if you saw this on Twitter, but it was a guy, conference organizer, who said, be humble, it's a privilege to talk at a conference, so pay for your own travel and hotel, and check your ego at the door. Pretty harsh. He does have some valid points in his remarks above there, like, thank us for being selected. Sure, I always do that if I get an invite. Say, oh, nice, I want to be at your conference, thank you. Don't change your talk, for instance. Look, at my talk is called Get on Stage. If I would do something with, I don't know, JavaScript, you would be really freaked out maybe. Like, this is not what we signed up for. But, you know, pay for your own travel unless you're a keynote speaker, he says. That is really utter bullshit, if you ask me. Sorry for the language, but he did apologize though, and he said, based on your feedback, it's apparent that we have an outdated travel policy. Duh. We want to improve it. There's a lot of noise on that on Twitter now, and a lot of speakers say, well, we're not going to talk at your conference anymore. So that was not a good move from him. If you're a first-time speaker, you might want to look at the speaker support conferences give you. For instance, are they actively looking for first-timers? Are they available for questions? Maybe even coaching. You get a buddy that you can review your slides with, or have some brainstorming about your subject, or how you should do things. Also look for a conference reputation. DPC is great. I know from personal experience. But do they have a code of conduct, for instance? Do they promote diversity? We don't want to have a white sausage party everywhere. I don't. You can definitely contact previous speakers and ask their experience at their conference. And just simply Google them. You probably get a lot of information about reaction of the audience, of the attendees and speakers. Okay, that's all fine. You've decided that you want to talk at this conference, for instance, DPC. You have to write a talk proposal for that. And it sounds really more complicated than it really is. There are a few things you have to keep in mind. You have to have a catchy and also clear title that attendees know what your talk is going to be about. As you see on the badge, it's the only thing that's mentioned there with your name. So make sure attendees get excited about it. You have to write an abstract. That's more for the organizer itself. It's an in-depth info about your talk with the key takeaways for the audience, and maybe a little bit more about what you're going to do. A bio, don't necessarily always have to do it up front. A bio is less, who are you? A little bit of background, professional, or even maybe personal if you like. Sometimes they ask you why should you be the one on stage talking about the subject. A headshot, well, photo then, not a real headshot, but a photo. And if you have them, videos or slides of previous talks. This is again a graph which I had responses of 15 conferences for, and I asked them to give a certain between 1 and 5 a level what's important for them. And you can see for organizers the description is the most important thing, like I just told you, but also the title is pretty obvious. The other ones are a little less important. Unfortunately, diversity, it's not the real point. Like, I would love them to actively look for other than white men, because it gives a more diverse spectrum on the conference and subjects and insights. But as you can see, description is the really important thing here. Okay, well, you've submitted a great talk, you think. And I remember my first submissions, they're definitely gonna take me, no doubt. Well, rejections. We all get them, definitely. I will show you some numbers later on. You can try find out why they rejected you, but it's not always possible because of the sheer amount of submissions they get. If you do get feedback, well, you can adapt your talk for future submissions maybe. Let's look at my statistics. I started in 2017. As you can see, red is not good, green is good. So I had 2 out of 22 submissions accepted, so 9%. In 2018, I had 65 CFPs I entered, and 13 times they selected me. And this year, 5 out of 41, and still 18 open, still waiting for those. In the research I did with speakers, it's very diverse. Some say, well, I got an acceptance rate of 60%. Some say 5%. I'm, in this case, at 12. If you look at the numbers, this is the amount of submissions these 15 conferences got. two are more a little bit anonymous. But if you look at DPC, they already got about above 400 submissions for this amount of slots. So if you look at JFocus, they have about, I think, 60 slots and 800 whatever submissions. So it's sometimes just a numbers game. You know, it has nothing to do with you or your talk. It's just, yeah, well, we have to make decisions. You're accepted and you're gonna write your talk. Well, start early. I must say, I break that rule many times, unfortunately. Because if you start early, you have time to do research. And you have to focus on the content first. This was for this talk. Just got a lot of post-its, jotted down things I wanted to think about, research, talk about. But that's the main thing. Make sure you have your content first. Then you can work on slides or demos or live coding or make recordings for your talk. And a talk should have a structure like a movie or a book. You have an intro, you have a midsection that is actually a story, and make sure you have a conclusion at the end. It should feel natural. You set a scene, you identify problems maybe, get possible solutions, and give your give direction of what you think about it. Demos. Make sure that demos are short and relevant for you, for that piece of your talk. Keep in mind that that can fail. Don't rely on internet access. It's pretty good here, but I've been in cinemas that it's down in the basement somewhere. No way. Have backup videos of demos if that is possible, or just demo with videos. I did a talk with speech recognition, and I encountered that it didn't work the way I wanted it because of bad connections or latency and stuff like that. So I just recorded the video and talked to my screen as if I was talking to a mobile phone. Live coding. I've done it once or twice. It's horrible. Trust me. Also, you want to have short live coding. It definitely will fail. And again, don't rely on internet access. And make sure you have code snippets. For instance, Visual Studio Code of PHP Storm has the ability with 1 or 2 clicks to have a complete code block there. Don't try to type it all yourself. Or have videos, or even use live coding with videos. A friend of mine did a talk at PhoneGap Day here in Amsterdam in 2012, I think. And 3 years later he told me, well, I wasn't live coding, this was just a video. But it looked like he was live coding, even made mistakes in his video to appear like it was live. So that's a more safe way to go, right? Let's talk about slides a little bit. Slides are very personal. They're for your audience and for you. For me, these slides are a little bit simple. If I look at other talks I do, it's more stuff in there, but it's whatever you like, if in a way you can get your story across. What I also sometimes do on slides, and that's a browser API talk I do, that's a website, an actual website. I have somewhere some red dots, or maybe they turn green. Red if it's an end of a section, green if a particular device is connected. So for me it's just a help, like, okay, it's working. If you use code examples, most of the time you can just copy them from VS Code and PHP Storm, and syntax highlighting will be kept there. Makes it easier for people to look at. And how many slides do you have to use? Whatever you like. You can have 2, none. I think I have 90. But it's just going through there fast or slow, it doesn't matter. One thing about color, have good contrast. Definitely, you want to be able to read it. And have a good background color. White is usually the one to go for, except if you're talking in a cinema. You can, well, not literally, but you can figuratively blind people. Imagine a 4K screen, all white, going into your face. So make sure you know where you're going to talk and adapt to that. Something about text, make sure it's short. I have a lot of bullet points here. That's usually not the way to go, but I want to give you as much information as I can. Maybe have some tweetable sound bites that people can put in their phone, like, cool. Make sure it's gender neutral. Don't say he, his, him, or whatever, just they, for instance. And make sure your text is readable. Well, this is quite readable, right? Have a large font size. It's fine, yeah. Use a sans serif font, not Comic Sans. And these are the examples I use. I use Open Sans, it's the one on the left, for the text. In the middle, it's Georgia. It's a little bit more difficult to read if you have a lot of text of that. And the right one is a font called, Rowdy. So I had to use that for my for the intersections, right? Welcome. Something about images. Images should always support the story. Don't put the images there just because you can. Again, use a variety of people, not only people that look like you, and avoid stereotypes. Things like, even my mom can do it, and then I have a picture of mom. Don't go there. And there's a little debate going on about using memes. I say, well, I'm fine with it. Sorry. Yeah, I'm fine with it. Although this is Sam on the left from 2007 already, so they never get old, right? Also, memes and humor, it can be it can be great, but it can also be dangerous. Make sure you're not offensive or tell dirty jokes or something, because it's not stand-up comedy you're doing here. I like to make fun of myself, like the Thor joke, right? And I like to make some harmless fun with the audience too, for instance. Okay, sorry, that was too easy. If you look at tooling, well, pick whatever you like. You have PowerPoint on Windows, Keynote, that's default on Mac. This is the first time I'm using Keynote. Usually I use a website, or I use DexSet. And DexSet is a tool where you can write markdown files and that will generate slides for you. Fine, whatever you like. I also mentioned Prezi, but none of the speakers I asked to fill in a survey said, yeah, I've used Prezi, because that's all gone, fortunately. It's good it's all gone. And maybe in your talk, make sure you have a list of resources that people can refer to later on and learn more about it. Or if you can, refer to other talks that have been before you or will be after you. I don't have one now, but I remember at other talks, like, oh, he said something, I can relate to that and use that later on. Okay. You've written your talk, and then the next part, practice. And I can only say one thing about that. Practice, practice, practice. It doesn't matter what you do. In front of a mirror, maybe record yourself. That's great fun. Talk to family or friends. They don't know what you're talking about. It doesn't matter. It's like you need to vent your information to them. Or at your work, use an empty conference room and just go there and try your talk. Do a lunch and learn with your coworkers, or go to user group meetups. 9 out of 10 times they really need speakers there. So it's a good way to test your talk and to practice it. Make sure you always stand up. Don't go sitting on a chair and like, okay, I know my talk. No, stand up. What I did last night was I plugged my laptop in the big ass TV screen in the hotel with I always bring an HDMI cable, by the way. I hooked it there and just stand in my hotel room doing this talk. Maybe people at the other end were saying, what's this guy doing? don't care, just do it, just do it. Be aware of the pace of your body language, of gestures you make. Keep them in tone. And just continue after errors. If I make an error here, I also have to continue. And if I say, oh, sorry, I made an error, then you are aware that I made an error. If I just continue, you have no idea. And look at people. Are they laughing? Are they smiling? Do they lean forward? If they lean forward, they're probably focused, is listening to you. Are they nodding? Well, they're agreeing with you. Are they nodding off? Yeah. Then you're probably too bored, or they're too bored of you. I don't know. Or they had a rough night. That could also be the case. Anybody sleeping? No. Okay. A little bit about travel and preparation. Make sure you have a checklist with clothing, adapters, for instance, remote. You want to bring charger, gadgets. I need a lot of gadgets or for my browser API talks, for instance. I didn't have a checklist first. I started one when I was in Munich and find out I didn't bring my charger for my MacBook. Fortunately, in Munich you have an Apple store, so I could get one. But if you're in a small town somewhere in Eastern Europe, maybe, it might be a real problem. Always use carry-on only, because you don't want to spend time waiting for the carousel for your baggage. Don't use a trolley if you use carry-on, because 9 out of 10 times they want you to check it in, because everybody's bringing a lot of crap with them, and trolleys are easy to put in the bulk. The only thing is, that's my luck in there, is that I bring a lot of gadgets that have lithium batteries in it, and they are only allowed as carry-on. So you can use that excuse also, unless they open your trolley. But and make sure that you relax also and take time to visit the town you're in. Before you go, it's the day of the talk. Make sure you know when and where you need to talk. I've seen people, startling, like, I have to be up on stage in 10 minutes. Well, make sure you know when it is. Also, what clothes are you going to wear? My slides are being recorded, but myself, I'm not recorded. If I would be recorded, I would make sure that I don't have a t-shirt with stripes on it or something like that, because it really interferes with the recording information. Also, if you sweat a lot, wear black clothes, because it's not that visible. I feel now that I'm sweating, and I'm just keeping my arms like this, right? Make sure that you know that the aspect ratio of the screen and your slides are in sync. Fortunately, DPC is a very good conference that sends you a lot of information up front about the aspect ratio of the screens, information about the rooms and the setup. So if you don't have that up front, make sure you go to the room early in the morning already and check if everything works. And if you see that, well, maybe I need to bump up my font size or change the aspect ratio, do that before you talk. You still have time then. I always make sure that I'm friends with the AV technicians, because especially when I do a lot of audio stuff, not always it works immediately. Here it does, but I was in Belgrade and I needed to use audio, and there we had a problem with the signal coming out of a keyboard I used that was way too loud over HDMI, so it was terrible sound for everybody. I must say it was still loud, but good loud later on. But they brought me an audio cable with a mini jack. So if you are nice to them, they will be nice to you too. And always make sure you thank them. Okay, you're maybe 10 minutes, 5 minutes before you have to go on stage. Make sure you have a checklist for things you need to do. For instance, I made sure I turn off Wi-Fi here because I don't need it and I don't want to have notifications in my screen popping up, for instance. I've disabled my phone because last time, again in Belgrade, Siri went nuts for some reason. I don't know what I said, but she came alive. If you're just after lunch, for instance, don't eat too much because your tummy might go rumble, and that's really annoying. Also, don't eat too little because you might faint, right? So have water, have a little power bar or maybe a protein bar or something. I like to sip a lot on water because my mouth is getting really dry. But you can also bite your tongue. Not like biting it off, but just a little bit. And what then will happen is that your body reacts to the pain that's feeling. It will create more saliva. It's like a natural healing process. So that's also a way of doing it. Okay, few minutes to go. Maybe do some power posing if you're into that. You know, feeling confident. Could be. I don't do that, but people do. Or maybe do some voice exercises. A friend of mine does that on the toilet, and that's, if you're there, it's probably really weird. Somebody roar, 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 and blah, blah, blah. But it helps him get his tongue loose and feel prepared. I'm more of a tech guy, so I do breathing exercises with my Apple Watch that will just for 1 or 2 minutes tremble on my wrist and say, okay, that's a signal to breathe in, and if it stops, you breathe out, just to calm my nerves. But do whatever works for you. It's easy. Find something that helps you. Okay. When you're on stage,
his palms are sweaty, knees weak, arms are heavy. There's vomit on his sweater already. Mom's spaghetti, he's nervous, but on the surface he looks calm and ready to drop bombs.
Yeah, nervousness. Definitely everybody is nervous. Palms are sweaty? Yes. Knees weak, more. Arms are heavy a little. Vomit on his sweater? I hope not. Maybe you noticed it in the beginning. My breathing went up and up. Short breaths. That's all nervousness. But in the end, I'm like a diesel. I will go on and on and on. I asked some other speakers that are also on this conference, and I see there are 2 here. Derek said, well, I'm sometimes a little jittery before my talk. Okay. Andreas has stage fright. Okay. Sebastian in the back might have a thin voice or a slight stomach rumble. Don't eat before you talk, I say to him. Pim, who is doing a talk a few doors further on, says heart rate breathing, and I hope he means he always have a heart rate, but it's probably an elevated heart rate. And you're laughing, but I got Pauline too. I turned red during the talk, and you did. I especially watched you at your talk, and you just went red and red, but that's fine. You know, we all respond to this thing. We're all human. We're not rock stars or gods. We're just humans. Of the 77 speakers I asked, 91% said, I'm nervous or sometimes nervous, and the other 9% is just lying. Other things like dry mouth, I saw sweaty palms, butterflies maybe in your tummy. The worst one that I came across, and I promised not to tell his name, is having diarrhea before you have to talk. Then you're really, really stressed out. So it's normal. It shows you care. If you're not nervous anymore, it's just like routine, right? You don't give the best of if you can. Focus on your talk and breathe. Also, microphones. Don't say, is this thing on? Can you hear me in the back? Yeah? No. If they cannot hear you, they will tell you. There are different kinds of microphones. This is a lapel. Last year they had the Britney here, like the over-ear headset. Or it might be a hand-hold microphone or no microphone at all, if the room is not that big enough. Okay. So if you're there, take time to breathe. Sometimes just shut up. So let people think about what you said, or maybe reflect on what you said. Don't single out a particular person, for instance. That's not fun, even especially if it's in a negative way. Don't do that. Try to be positive always. If people leave the room, that's fine. They're probably not interested that much in the subject, or maybe just pick the wrong room. Fortunately, no one has left yet. Whew. Timing. Know your limit. We got 45 minutes here. I always set it to 40 just to make sure I have a little space there, maybe underrun a little. And keep track of your time. You don't want to be the guy or the girl that makes sure that the whole schedule is screwed up because you took too much time. And remember, everybody is rooting for you. No one wants to see you fail here. About failures, I have a few from other speakers. One thought that his time slot was 40 minutes, but it was 20 minutes, and 5 minutes before the end, he was just wrapping the intro. All kinds of demos didn't work because I forgot to test them. Easy, test them before you do them. I even test them here when I'm setting up, just to make sure everything works. I once gave a talk where no joke landed. Yeah, that's painful. As I said, jokes are really dangerous. Just 4 people in the room because other people went to a famous speaker. Things happen, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you don't have to make the same effort if there are 400 people there. It's okay. Hardware demos failing can happen. Make videos of it so you can show them later. Here is about live coding. I got nervous and made 5 typos in a single word. Maybe do it in another way then. I had to run npm install. Or composer install, whatever. Make sure you have your stuff running. Zero Wi-Fi and no connection to Code Sandbox, an online code editor. Don't use online stuff. And this is what happened to me in Belgium. My laptop just died in the middle of a talk. Fortunately, I knew where I was and I knew my slides, so I could continue with my story. And in the meantime, panically restarting that thing. And in a few minutes, it all went okay. Talking about blackout, Harry Roberts, pretty big speaker in the front-end world, had an actual blackout on stage. And that's the worst thing that can happen. And ironically, he did a talk about the dangers of overworking yourself and overdoing things. We're almost there. You did it. You finished your talk. I have probably 1 or 2 minutes left now before they say cut it out. So what do you do then? Share your slides. I will send out a tweet later on, and it's also on one of the latest slides. Be available for attendees, for questions, for interaction. Thank people, thank organizers, thank AV people. They're not here, but if I see that, I'll still say thanks for doing that. And especially enjoy the adrenaline rush you get. It's, at first you're like, this, it's running, right? It's like, I don't know, I don't want it, come on, I want to do it. And then after 45 minutes, it's like, yes, you did it. It's fun time. Okay, if you want to know more about this, talk to me afterwards, or maybe look into these books. That has a lot of information about getting on stage and about designing your slides, for instance. And I wait until you took a picture. Okay? And that's the last one. I want to thank you. Please rate my talk and talk of other speakers that joined in. The slides are already available on that URL too. As I said, I will tweet them out at Rowdy Rabouw. And I want to thank you very, very much for joining me.